We're sitting down here today with Beto Altamirano, a candidate for San Antonio mayor in this year's open race to succeed Mayor Ron Nirenberg. Beto, thank you for taking some time to
Thank you, David, for the opportunity.
So our audience can learn more about you. Beto, I wanted to start off going back to last May when you announced your campaign. You put out your video on social platforms, and what stood out to me and that what I remember is that you kicked off not necessarily talking about your story right off the bat, but the story of two San Antonians, a local entrepreneur and an anti-violence advocate. It seemed to me that was a very intentional choice by your campaign. Why did you decide to do that?
Yes, David, thank you for the question. And it's great to be here with the audience of Kent's. I'm a South Texan. I was born and raised along the border in Mission, Texas. And I chose San Antonio over a decade ago to start my family, start my business, and build community. For me, it's always been about the us, the city of San Antonio, its people. I moved here because of its heritage, its identity, its culture, su gente. And that's what inspired me. And so when we launched the campaign, I knew that it wasn't about me. It was about all of us, right? If we're gonna move forward, it has to be all of us together as a city. And that's what inspired me. So what you hear from that video, right, my launch video, is that it's the story of us collectively. Together, we're gonna change, the city for a better future. Together, we're gonna build the future that we want to see. It's not just gonna take one mayor or one council. It's gonna take the people of San Antonio to get involved and to influence the outcomes for the beautiful city that we call home, San Antonio. And so it's always been about us, and I didn't build my company by myself. I built it with the help of this community from the ground up. And so I'm proud, of that story. And that's the story of us that I talk about often in my campaign. But in my campaign, I'm also talking about choosing San Antonio first and how our children and grandchildren, we want them to choose San Antonio first. But we are facing generational challenges that require generational change. When I launched the campaign, I spent about 4 or 5 months visiting every corner of the city. And I heard directly from people and the needs that they are experiencing, the challenges that they are experiencing, their aspirations and opportunities. And it got me thinking why, the story of us makes sense for our brand, for our campaign. Because San Antonio's at a crossroads. It feels like it's our moment. And it's everyone's city. And we must step up. And we must have a voice in the public policy making process. But it starts with people.
Why and when did you decide to run?
I was just asked that this morning about that decision, and I think it took time. I've been a partner of the city of San Antonio for almost 10 years. I developed the 311 San Antonio mobile platform, which has addressed thousands of issues that have been generated by the public of San Antonio, from potholes to missing stop signs or stop lights, to flooding, to stray animals. All of that has been reported on my platform. So it's been almost 10 years of working with the city of San Antonio. So when people ask me, well, Beto, have you fixed a pothole? We've fixed thousands of potholes through the use of technology. I'm no longer running that product. That is housed in a nonprofit that is helping young kids learn about STEM careers and nurturing that product. But for me, that was the inception of my story in San Antonio's public service world. And I guess my background, when I look at what I've done in the past, working in the state legislature, working in the U.S. Senate as a fellow, as a Bill Archer fellow from the UT System Initiative, working in the White House under the United States Trade Representative, and then spending 2 years at the Alamo Area MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And then the combination of my academic background, UT Austin, political science. I got my master's in public administration at the Harvard Kennedy School. For me, government and public policy is something that I know very well. But I chose to also explore a career in entrepreneurship, impacting governments. So for a long time, I really wanted to be a political entrepreneur. But I've dedicated my life's work to finding solutions from outside of government, impacting government. And so when I announced my candidacy for mayor, there was a leading effort, right, in terms of understanding the issues that our city is facing, serving in various boards like Port San Antonio, becoming the vice chair of the board at Port San Antonio. It didn't happen overnight. I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to run for mayor. No, it's been over 10 years of public service, of being a servant leader. And I think at this stage in my career, I know what I'm good at. I have the executive skills of building a company from scratch, building the right teams, pursuing the right projects, dictating a vision. But ultimately, it comes down to servant leadership, and that's what I'm most passionate about. And that led to the decision of announcing my candidacy for mayor. And it's been an incredible 9 months of running this campaign, of learning about the challenges that our city experiences, but also talking about solutions and having a plan. And that's why we developed the Plan 210, which you can learn about it online, plan210.com, and you'll see every single policy laid out. And we don't hide the issues that we care about or the solutions that we want to talk about. Everything's online. We're transparent. And we're building this with the public of San Antonio. The feedback that I received in my listening tour was translated into this policy framework. And it's not complete. I don't pretend to know it all, David. I know what I know and what I don't. And as an entrepreneur, you have to recognize that. And you have to build great teams around you to make the best decisions, because that's what you do as a leader. And so I think it's been a combination of experiences that have led me to this decision of announcing my candidacy for mayor.
Some might say that city council experience is necessary or a prerequisite in their eyes to serve as mayor. And some of those might be folks you're running against in this race. But what you just talked about, your experience in helping shape policy at the state and federal levels, as well as the local boards, do you view that as compensating for that? That's
government experience, right? I don't think that you need to be a council member to be a great mayor. And we've seen that in the past. Folks like leaders like Phil Harberger, for example. He was not a council member, and he was a very efficient leader for our city. My combination of public sector experience and private sector leadership will be very helpful, to the city of San Antonio, especially at the crossroads that we're in. San Antonio is experiencing growth. By 2050, you're looking at almost 4 million people, or past that, right? And between San Antonio and Austin, you're looking at 8.5 million people. The question is not whether we're gonna grow, it's how do we prepare for that growth? And how do we protect the identity and the culture of our city with this growth that we are experiencing as well? We need to focus on issues like economic development, infrastructure, public safety. But we also need to focus on the future of our workforce, the generational disinvestment in parts of town, like in the West Side, where my campaign HQ is located at. The digital connectivity, or giving a leg up to those folks that need it the most in this economy. Nurturing the skills of our workforce, the trades, for example, bringing trades back to high school, or thinking about the modern economy, like cybersecurity, advanced manufacturing, bioscience, and air and space. And those are skills that I have working in the tech sector as well. Being a cybersecurity professional allows me to understand the challenges of our workforce, but also find solutions to the economic disinvestment of parts of town through education and training. So as you can see, and I spoke about this at length already, I have a background in government, but also have a background in private sector leadership and public service leadership that I think allows me, to come into that seat and be an efficient mayor. But again, you have to work closely with the other council members, and I intend to do that. As a servant leader and someone that leads from behind, I understand the value of building consensus in council. You have to build consensus. You have to make difficult decisions. You have to be a leader, but you have to build consensus. And that means understanding the needs of each district. talking to each council member and understanding their aspirations for their district and the challenges that they are facing. And understanding that a win for their district is a win for all of San Antonio. And that's what I want to do from day one. Be collaborative and push our city forward. And I'm not going to get things right all the time. I understand that. But that's why you have to be intentional. And you have to try and try and try again. And you have to surround yourself with good team members. And that's what a good entrepreneur does, with experts on the subject matter. In the areas where I might lack expertise, I will get the advice from people that have institutional knowledge on those policies and those efforts and those industries. And I think that's what a great leader does. It has to lead with curiosity. It has to be intentional, make difficult decisions, lead, have a vision forward for your organization. And in this case, is the city of San Antonio. And also build consensus.
You talk about growth a lot and development, and obviously if you think about the lifespan of San Antonio, it's certainly in a growth stage in the evolution of the city, right? You're thinking about the expansion of the airport, the Alamo makeover, Project Marble, and what that might look like in 2, 5, 15 years. Just looking at how many people are moving to San Antonio, right? And I think those are the things that most people would point to, and if they live in San Antonio, think of growth. From your perspective, what does that perspective of growth not entail? Is there another way we're not talking about growth that you would like to shed more light on it and lead in?
Yeah, so I think when we talk about growth, I think we have to be intentional about not just the number of people that are moving to San Antonio. I think there has to be a focus as well on our economy. At the end of the day, like, people want good paying jobs. They want to find meaning in the work that they do, from the moment they wake up to the moment they go home and are with their families. They want to find hope as well in the process of building their lives in San Antonio. And I think a lot about that. And I think about how government at the local level sets the conditions forward so that people have great quality of life. And that entails that when we're thinking about growth, we got to be thinking about the workforce of our future. But we have to be also intentional about training and educating our people in San Antonio and retaining talent as well in San Antonio. That's one of my concerns, that we have a trending older demographic for the next 25 years. And our senior community is going to be affected negatively, right, if we don't have young people stimulating the economy in the next 25 years. So for me, it becomes a concern. And I think we need energy. And we need someone who's energized and can capture the momentum moving forward to retain young talent in San Antonio. And that's what my campaign proposes. But to get there, we need to be talking about good paying jobs and an environment that will retain talent in San Antonio or welcome people to San Antonio. But second, we got to also focus on our infrastructure, right? We have to have more sustainable outcomes in terms of quality of life for San Antonians. Walkability, bikeability, right? I think cars and active transportation need to coexist. We need better public transit. I think we're doing a good job, but we need to continue nurturing our public transit. Better digital connectivity. About 18% of San Antonians still don't have access to the internet. So if we want to compete in the modern economy and we are achieving this growth, you're still leaving a lot of people behind. And as I mentioned, this is the story of us collectively. If we're going to move forward, it has to be with all of us collectively. And when we talk about infrastructure, we cannot ignore also that we have water infrastructure that is robust and energy, but we have to continue nurturing those outcomes for SAWS and CPS. And that means strong oversight of the operations and strong leadership. And I think today, more than ever, right, we have to be resilient in our infrastructure. And that looks like building and using materials that are going to be helpful for the heat conditions that we are experiencing in San Antonio. Resilient infrastructure is also important. So I mentioned infrastructure, economic development, and public safety as well. Tackling the issue of crime, for example. and health. And I talk about these issues because when we talk about growth, we need to be prioritizing the issues that are going to impact the next 25 years of San Antonio.
So that being said, you start touching on a little bit on it, but let's then start talking about specifics. If you were to be elected, what would be your focus on day one, and what would you hope to accomplish or begin inroads into accomplishing in your first 100 days?
First 100 days, I got 3 pillars that I want to focus on: economic opportunity, infrastructure, and public safety. When we talk about economic opportunity, taking care of childcare in San Antonio, really nurturing that pipeline of childcare professionals and working side by side with childcare services in San Antonio so that we can build a robust pipeline of childcare for every San Antonian, especially the young families that cannot afford that. Second, talking about the workforce and jobs of the future, but also helping people understand that these jobs don't require a 4-year degree program, right? From an institution that is going to be too expensive. I'm talking about certifications in cybersecurity. I'm talking about certifications in advanced manufacturing, in aerospace and bioscience, and nurturing that ecosystem and bringing more investment in companies in those industries to San Antonio. I'm talking about also small business support, the backbone of our economy and the DNA that represents San Antonio, and buying local and supporting our small businesses of San Antonio, which leads me to construction that has impacted a lot of small businesses in San Antonio. And that's my second pillar, infrastructure, starting with construction, understanding that we have hundreds of projects in the pipeline from the 2022 bond, and not a large percentage of them have been completed. So knowing how we can tackle the issue of construction and planning for better outcomes in how project management is going for these projects in the construction environment for San Antonio. So that means introducing the concept of a construction czar that can be the glue between CPS, SAWS, and the city of San Antonio so that we finalize our projects on time. Second, sustainability, focusing on building great quality of life, walkability, bikeability, transit-oriented development, but also prioritizing a resilient infrastructure against climate change. And understanding that both cars and active transportation can coexist. Finally, housing is a big issue. It's expensive, especially for people that want to stay in San Antonio. The average cost of a home is about $350,000. And not a lot of people can afford that. And that's a concern for me because I want people to still live the American dream, and owning a home is part of that American dream. But let's not forget about affordable housing as well. As the city grows, right, and we're talking about projects in downtown and other areas of town, we need to have affordable housing. We need to get people a leg up in this economy and make sure that everybody has a shot at the American dream. And finally, we talk about public safety, my last pillar, crime being at the top of the agenda, community-oriented policing, expanding safe officers, which is the San Antonio Fear-Free Environment officers that are doing great work with neighborhood leaders across the city of San Antonio, getting to the root cause of why crime is happening in our city. Hiring more data scientists that have a criminologist background so that we can look at the data and have more presence in the places where we need to have more presence on behalf of SAPD, but also response times. Look, we cannot police our way out of crime, but what we can do is have more presence where we need it. So I'm talking about mental health units, for example, right? Prioritizing our response times through the use of mental health services, for example. And finally, I'm also talking about animal care services with my public safety Plan 210 priority. Expanding spay and neuter, educating pet owners about responsible pet ownership, and hiring more vets and ACS professionals. And then you have health as my pillar, my last pillar in public safety. You know, when we think about health in San Antonio, that's something that we must prioritize. Issues related to heart conditions and obesity is on the rise. And when you look at the south side of San Antonio, there's an age disparity of almost 20 years of lifespan between the south side of San Antonio and the north side of San Antonio. We have to look closely at how we are tackling the issue of health in San Antonio and prioritize policies that impact positively every corner of the city. And so those are my 3 pillars, the 9 issues that from day one we will prioritize, that we must tackle from day one, that we must work with other council members to get things done. and be efficient with our time in council. And that's my North Star of my policy. And it's people powered. These are the issues, the aspirations, the stories that I heard from people out there on the campaign trail after I did a 5-month listening tour, learning about the most pressing issues that San Antonians are facing.
It's not lost to me that the first thing you mentioned on that list is helping families with childcare.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Because we're talking, as we're talking today, you and your wife welcomed a baby Andre in the last
yes.
week or so.
Thank you, David.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's a wonderful experience, fatherhood, right? And it's been almost 10 days of being a father and balancing the campaign trail with being a father. And so, but it's given me a lot of motivation as well as to why San Antonio and why I'm running.
I want to change the conversation just a little bit and think about, when you ask maybe the layperson, whether it's in San Antonio, anywhere in Texas, across the country these days, when you ask them to think about, consider tech and politics, because of what's happening at the national level, there's one person they'll think of first of all, and that's Elon Musk. We don't have to get into any of all that, but with that in mind, I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, how can experience in the tech industry be, and in your view, should be leveraged as an asset in local politics?
Absolutely. I mean, I do work in the technology space, but more than anything, I'm a cybersecurity professional. So think about, in a way, public safety. My company is protecting, our systems from the military to Fortune 500 companies, the systems through penetration testing, through API development and protection, and also desktop security. So in a way, it's not your big tech that we're talking about. What I do is security, right? I started, my go-to market product was fixing potholes through the use of technology. I feel like in every industry, you have a component of innovation and technology, and that's exciting. And so I want young people to be curious about STEM careers. When I started my business, I didn't have a lot of role models in the technology space. Being a South Texan and then choosing San Antonio to start my business in the technology world, there weren't a lot of mentors. But we've seen rapid change in that industry in San Antonio, where now you have a strong tech ecosystem or innovation ecosystem. And I think that's healthy, and that gets me excited. With technology, you can have a lot of social impact. And that's what I've done. I dedicated my life's work, in leveraging technology to make a positive impact in governments and cities like San Antonio. And so when I think about the possibilities ahead of us in terms of leveraging technology for public good and use, there's endless possibilities. And we have to remain optimistic about that. Not because a few actors in the space that are not creating a positive impact, does that mean that everyone in the tech industry or industries that are powered by technology are not thinking about the public good or social impact? I will argue that, in the contrary, you have a lot of folks in multiple industries that are leveraged or powered by the use of innovation and technology that are thinking of ways to have a positive impact in our world. And I think as we progress, that's a spirit that we must have in San Antonio, because we have emerging trends in our economy that are powered by the use of technology like cybersecurity, like bioscience or biotech or advanced manufacturing. And we must be bullish on those industries. According to Greater SATX, we're looking at almost 100,000 cybersecurity professional jobs in the next 5 years in San Antonio. The challenge is that the workforce is not there. So I want to send a message of hope and a message of inclusion to the community of San Antonio to embrace the role of technology. We should not shy away from it or criticize it in a negative way. In the contrary, those are high-paying jobs, and they are low-hanging fruit for us in San Antonio, but we must embrace them. And that means embracing STEM careers, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I will add STEAM and the arts as well. And so I feel that my skills, coming from that tech background as well, and being a cybersecurity professional, can really help bolster attention to those industries and engage with the parents of potential young leaders in those industries. And that's what we did. I started about 2 years ago a foundation that I'm no longer part of, but it was my baby, right? I was the founder of it, and it's called the Better Futures Institute. And we'd have helped already 20 students in college to explore careers in the STEM world. We pay them a good salary for 3-4 months, and they get to learn how to work with the 311 San Antonio mobile app. So they're already learning how to engage with the city government, but learning STEM skills and being unafraid to venture into that world, and also talking to their parents about the potential in those industries. So I think having a leader, a mayor that understands that world will be very powerful for the modern economy and for families across the city of San Antonio.
Wonderful. Beto, do you have any criticisms of the current administration and how much you do things different?
At what level?
At the local level in San Antonio.
Well, I mean, look, there's always room for improvement. I think the mayor and the current administration have done an exceptional job, right? In areas where, we historically needed more investment, right? I think the mayor handled COVID-19 very well. And that's my take, that's my opinion. But also, when you look at Ready to Work SA, I think it was a good start. And we need to continue improving what that looks like, right? Focusing on some of the trends that we see in our workforce, training for that. But also I would say this administration really had to balance, coming out of COVID with dictating a vision towards the future. And I think the next mayor needs to come in with a well-defined plan for the future of San Antonio. This is not just about improvising, and I get it. Leadership is an improvisational process, but we have to have objectives. And what we did with Plan 2.0 was that. Is have objectives. And I've been criticized for having a plan by other candidates. But the reality is that we must have a plan. We must have objectives for not just the first 100 days, for the 4 years that this mayor is going to be serving as the mayor of San Antonio. And let's not forget that the power, the elected office is borrowed from the people to that elected official. And so the elected official owes it to the public to be transparent with all the dealings in the city of San Antonio, but to have objectives and have a plan on how he or she is going to impact the future of every San Antonian. So I would say that the current administration has made strides, and the next mayor needs to continue nurturing the ecosystem of San Antonio to build a better future. And it must have a plan of action. We're past COVID. Now let's be bullish on the future of our economy. Let's be bullish on the future of our infrastructure, and let's tackle crime head on and have strong guardrails when it comes to public safety in our city. But be hopeful about the story of San Antonio. The story of San Antonio is a wild one. It's a story of pioneers. It's a story of doers. It's a story of not consumers, but producers and contributors. And I want our story, as we continue to move forward, to be defined by its people and the richness of its culture. But it's going to start with people also getting involved. And part of my administration is going to be powered by people. It's going to be powered by going to neighborhoods, by listening, by moderating a conversation with the community about what's impacting us and what we aspire to become.
Beto, is there anything else that you'd like to add that you want to make sure people know about you before we wrap up?
Yeah, look, I'm a son of immigrants. And when I was 17, my father was deported. And I'm open about this story. And that sent me on a trajectory of self-discovery, but also learning about policies and how laws impact us. My dad is back in the United States. But I learned a lot. And I learned a lot about our public policy. And I went on to study at UT Austin political science and got my master's in public administration from the Harvard Kennedy School. And my life's work has been dedicated to servant leadership, to public service. I'm passionate about the work that we're doing right now on the campaign trail because I'm passionate about San Antonio. I chose San Antonio. And I want our children to choose San Antonio first. My vision for San Antonio is taking care of the immediate needs that we have. the broken streets, the safe neighborhoods, but it's also building a future grounded on economic opportunity, inclusivity, and innovation.
Do you have any challenges ahead that you're, like the homeless, what just kind of looking at him?
Yeah.
Do you think the homeless is going to be part of the challenges you're going to have in your office?
Yeah, absolutely. As the city grows, right, and part of our housing efforts, right, and mental health issues that we're tackling with our Plan 210, taking care of the on-house is a big issue in San Antonio and in every major city. So that's why I'm calling, right, for more funding opportunities and supporting efforts like Sand Ministries, which is focusing on low barrier housing. I think the work they're doing is exceptional. Heaven for Hope as well, and Close to Home. But also let's look at the conditions, right, that some of the on-house folks are experiencing, which is not having a social home, family members or friends that can support them, dealing with mental health and addiction, and not having a proper job or a job that can allow them to pay their bills. And so those are things that we need to also address head on as a society, as a city government. And the power of the mayor lies in the bully pulpit, in leveraging the attention, right, to the issues that are impacting us, and using the microphone and finding solutions through public policy that can actually impact the on-house community of San Antonio. And let's not forget about housing affordability. I've heard stories from folks that are on-house about how it's taken them forever to have a shot at affordable housing by the city of San Antonio. And I know we're making strides at the city, and I celebrate and really recognize the efforts that our city government is doing, but we must do more, and we must be intentional about the on-house population in San Antonio. And let's not forget our veteran community that is also experiencing with homelessness and mental health issues. We talk about being military city USA. I want to continue nurturing and helping our veteran community of San Antonio to get those jobs that they want, in San Antonio, good paying jobs, to get the health care that they deserve and to build great quality of life for them. And when we talk about the on-house, making sure that veterans don't go on-house as well.
Asked why he is the best candidate for mayor, Altamirano told us, quote, "San Antonio's mayor needs to be a visionary leader, not just another politician. I understand what it means to work hard and to lead because that's what I've been doing my whole life. I worked hard to graduate from UT and from Harvard. I've been involved in my community, serving on city boards and also developing the 311 app. I've built businesses and created jobs in San Antonio. That kind of leadership is why Nelson Wolff has endorsed me for mayor," end quote.